Hi, I'm Deborah Quazzo, the co-founder of the ASU+GSV Summit, along with my partner, Michael Moe. And we want to welcome you to GSV TV, where Michael and I had the great opportunity to interview ETS's CEO, Amit Sevak.
Amit, we're so glad that you're with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here, Michael. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and really, we were with you a couple of weeks ago in India, and it's so exciting to hear about the plans that you have for ETS. You've been there almost a year now, but what is it that you know, coming in, you always learn a bunch. So what do you were on the board before, so you had a perspective, but the point is, what has sort of been different as you come into the organization, and what are you most excited about?
Yeah, no, well, Michael, thanks for having me on, and Deborah, it's great to see you as well. And by the way, congratulations to both of you and to the whole GSV family for an outstanding event in Delhi. I mean, really, the event that you guys put on there was unbelievable. I've been going to India now for over a decade. I've been to countless education and edtech conferences, and I'm genuine in saying that was the best event for me and for us in terms of meeting new people, intersecting with government and edtech and investors. So just again, congratulations on an outstanding event last month in India. So on your question, over the last year of what have I seen and how I'm feeling, I'm feeling great. I see a lot of opportunity for ETS along a whole range of areas. And in keeping with the comments earlier about India, I just see a lot of ETS's opportunities as really global. And we're at this intersection post-COVID where there's so much eagerness and a desire to really do things differently in education. There's an awareness of what's just not working. And so there's an opportunity right now, I think, like candidly never before, to try new things in K-12 and higher ed and workforce. And so for me, that keeps me super energized because ETS touches all three of those areas, both in the US and internationally.
So in talk about that, I mean, obviously ETS been around since 1947, huge brand in education, huge footprint, 25 million plus people are testing with you, take a test with you every single year. As you look at the future, I mean, how much of that do you think is really outside the United States? You talked about India, I know that Africa, I know China, I know MENA, they're all regions that are of importance to you. How do you look at that, and how do you prioritize and how you participate in that opportunity?
Yeah, I think as I look forward, ETS's opportunities are really global. I look at this in a couple of different ways. I think the first is when I look at the opportunities internationally, I look at certain regions of the world where I see the biggest opportunity. And so when you compare Asia versus the Middle East versus Africa, Europe, LATAM, North America, my eyes are set on Asia right now. I see big opportunities in South Asia and Southeast Asia. I'm still a believer in East Asia. And so I believe that there's a ton of growth still, and it's mostly driven by demographics and where the economic growth engines lie. And so when you look at the pillar of India, just the phenomenal growth rate of India, the fact that the population is so large and that the government policies, Michael, are so proactively focused on supporting the education sector. So I see the intersection of those things as really coming together. So let's take India, for example. You've got a government that has launched the national education policy in 2020, where assessments was mentioned dozens of times in that policy. You've got a economy that is growing at breathtaking speed. You've got a K-12 sector that has 250 million individual students that are looking for, and their families, better outcomes. You've got a higher ed market that's 40 million targeted to get to 80 million in the next decade. And then the work world in India. And so that's an example of, a country that we're putting a lot of focus on. We see other Southeast Asian markets as well as big opportunities where we're seeing that alignment of government policy, demographics, and economics. And so that really are areas of priority. I'm also looking a lot at the Middle East right now. I've been in my role now just over 7-8 months. I've been to Dubai already 3 times in that half a year plus. And so I see a lot of opportunity in the Gulf and in other Middle East areas. We don't do enough in LATAM right now, and I'd like to see a lot more focus on Latin America. I see big growth opportunities, particularly with changes that are either having just happened or about to happen. So I think government policies actually play a role in addition to demographics and economics. So it's the intersection of those 3, and that helps us prioritize.
And I'll let Deborah jump in a second, but I just want to follow up on the India piece because you obviously grew up in America, grew up in Chicago, went to University of Chicago and Harvard Business School, but your heritage is Indian. How do you? So you have a different perspective than maybe some of us would. How do you see the Indian culture? So you talk about government policy, but then you talk about just sort of culture and the prioritization of education in different geographies. How do you look at that as it relates to the Indian culture, the Indian family?
My parents came to the U.S. after an important public sector act. President Lyndon Johnson, in October of 1965, signed the Immigration Act that really ushered in this incredible linkage between India and the United States. Before then, the primary migration that came to the United States was from Europe. And then with that important act, it opened up a whole range of other countries, including India, to come to the United States to study and to find work. And so with that act, literally my dad was on that first wave of people of Indian origin to come to the United States, settle in Chicago, and then my mom came, and then I and my brothers grew up in Chicago. And I think that it's that history of connectivity between India and the US has provided a very strong bond that extends beyond economics and really being the largest democracy and the most powerful democracy coming together. There's really that shared cultural understanding with families going back and forth. So I, for me, there's a lot of pride that I feel in now at a stage when I'm able to play a role in an institution that's anchored in the United States, but has such an opportunity to serve in India. My last name is Sevak, and in Hindi and really in Sanskrit, it means one who serves. And there's this sense right now of service that when I look at the Indian market, I see an opportunity to help hundreds of millions of people and generations to come by providing educational offerings, assessment services, products, and research capabilities through our ETS capital work, investments. And so there's just a sense of like, wow, we can really have a huge difference. People used to leave India, like my parents, to find opportunity. And now there's so much demand and desire for opportunity in India. So, I feel really proud to be in an organization where we're looking to really strengthen those bonds.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's I love that context. It's fantastic. And so that actually helps me pull you around to the question of ETS and product and kind of looping that in with what I think we all believe today is the greatest revolution ever that has ever occurred in education with the wave of generative AI. Bill Gates just published his first omnibus letter on it today, where I think he was dead on speaking to the education sector. Not everyone appreciates the sort of the broad product line that ETS has. They think educational testing service, they think the test that they took when they went to high school, and they don't appreciate the depth and breadth of what actually sits within ETS. So I'd love to hear as you talk about some of the, these geographies, including the US, what are the things that you really want to, make prominent claims to fame for the ETS brand going forward, where you think the opportunity sits. And then also the other thing, as you well know, I had the privilege and honor of being on the ETS board for a number of years before you joined as CEO, unfortunately. But I mean, I was a wonderful previous CEO, but I didn't get the benefit of seeing you in action. And so I have a little perspective there. The other fascinating piece is just what a deep-seated, mission-driven research shop that ETS is, and that actually you've had a strong hold in the AI and the artificial intelligence world for many years. So love for you to kind of layer all those things together. What is ETS able to do in terms of leveraging an existing strength there, and then how that plays out on sort of your prioritization on the product line?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. And let me first start with just some context on ETS, just to build off your question. So ETS was founded in 1947, as you know. And so we just celebrated our 75th anniversary just a few months ago. And our origins really were very much from day one around building offerings in the assessment space that provide access and equity to people to get admission to institutions of higher education. That's how we started. And over the years, we've really developed into three broad areas today. We continue to deliver those kinds of testing products, what I'll call our products area. We then have assessment services, where we work with these organizations that are in turn trying to provide assessments. And then we also have research capabilities. And so let me first start with products. So about roughly half of our revenue is in different kinds of products. The four big products, of course, are TOEFL,
which is the English language test.
Exactly. We've got TOEIC, which is an English assessment for the adult market. We have Praxis, which is to enable individuals to become into teachers. And then we have our GRE offering for graduate admissions. So those four products, along with the dozens of other products, form our product capabilities. And those are really the cornerstone of ETS's history. They include anything from a 30-minute test to a 3-hour test that we charge anywhere from $30 to $200, just setting context. And these products are very much part of our legacy, but also very much part of our current operating model. So the products piece is key. And we're going to continue to offer testing products that are going to be B2C. We're going to continue to offer testing products that are going to expand into new areas that we're working on right now. But that's the first part of our business, testing products. The second part of our operation is assessment services. Now, in assessment services, what we're typically looking for are multi-year contracts with organizations to enable assessments to be delivered. This assessment services area serves different kinds of customers. This is more of our B2B space, whereas you think of products as B2C, where an individual pays us for a test. B2B is where we charge an institution to provide a whole range of assessment services. This is where we typically call it BDS. We build assessments, we deliver assessments, and then we score assessments. And we do these in various types of organizations, from associations to companies to large edtech organizations, and where we're helping them strengthen the quality and the integrity of the assessments that they offer so that they can validate the quality of what's happening. Because, in my view, one of the biggest things, as you mentioned in your opening comment with the disruption that's happening, is I'm extremely excited, and GSV and others are playing such a huge role in building this massive ecosystem of innovators. But the one challenge we have as educators and education investors is we're not able to consistently measure the outcomes. We're not in a position right now where right. And so as the leading education measurement company in the world, we have a not only a legacy, but in some ways I would argue we have a duty to be able to provide good quality assessment services that can help K-12 school systems, higher education institutions, associations, corporations have multi-year engagements where we can help them build, assess, because there's a science behind this, and the science is serious. And so if somebody gets a score on something, and that score ought to mean something, that if someone else gets a score on a similar type of test, that there's some validity of that score. That's important for us to build comfort and reliability to measure that. And then the third part of our operation is our research capabilities. And we just had an opportunity, Deborah, to launch our new R&D strategy. So I'm excited to share with you today that our new R&D strategy is built on three important pillars. The first is that we want to globalize research. So we want to serve more countries throughout the world. So we're rapidly moving in a global way. We're just launching our R&D activities in India as we speak. This is a new initiative that we're kicking off this year. The second is that we're moving rapidly to go from capability building and R&D to much more product building. And so we're shifting the focus to think about, well, who's the customer? What's the price? And what's the technology? And how do we use generative AI in everything that we do for new products? And then the other big thing that we're really focusing on is really thinking about much more breakthrough research, Deborah. We really think this is a time when ETS reaches the founder of so many innovations in education assessment. I mean, we invented evidence-based design. We're applying multimodal AI at a global scale. We're doing so many innovative things, applying AI into this space, that we think it's another area where we have to be the leader, and we will be the leader in ensuring that we're doing really revolutionary research. So at a high level, that's ETS today. We offer products, we offer services, and we offer research capabilities. Now, on your core question on AI, I'm really proud to share that ETS has been applying AI in assessments for 20 years, as you know. And we've been continually innovating in a way that, we chuckle, when ChatGPT, we've been doing generative AI for 3 years. We have AI in our design phase. We have AI that's in our building of assessments. We have AI in our scoring. And there's a lot of things that we're doing in terms of security to ensure that we're applying artificial intelligence to the many ways that we want to protect the integrity of the test. And we have so many, we launched 3 years ago in the middle of COVID, ETS AI Labs, which has over 100 individuals that are really driving some of the foremost thinking here. So this is a huge area of focus for us.
Yeah, I just want to just give people context, because I when I think about you as the leading education measurement company in the world, I don't think people really appreciate the resources you have devoted in the research area and the science area, and just number of people that you have devoted to that right now.
We have hundreds of individuals that are not just based in Princeton, New Jersey, our global headquarters, but individuals that are in Europe, individuals up in Canada, individuals out in India. And we're doubling down on these investments as well. So,
yes, and as you think about, so we talk about AI and generative AI, and you've been utilizing it for years, and that can be a friend of the future. To talk about how you think of AI being a foe of what some potential foe of what you're doing, and the other disruption. And again, it's I think getting away from measurement is kind of hard to imagine in terms of as we move forward, but the kind of no test noise that you hear in the marketplace. So talk about both of those as foes and what you're doing about it.
Yeah. No, thanks. So we're really embracing the use of AI to help us scale our operations. We're signing on new contracts, Michael, at a scale which I'm very excited about. And so with our commitments that we're making, we want to be able to build, deliver, and score assessments at scale. So being able to use AI to design assessments and build them, to be able to deliver them, and to be able to score them is a huge advantage that we have. So that's one example of many where we're using AI in the actual operations. We're also excited about the use of AI from a security standpoint. And this is a bit of the foe as well as the friend. We have technologies like eye gaze. So when someone's taking an assessment in a computer-based test, so they're in front of a screen, we're able to use artificial intelligence to check how are their eye movements moving around, keystroke analysis to see how the keystrokes are shaping up, to see are they themselves the one taking the test. So we're using artificial intelligence in all kinds of ways to ensure that the tests are valid, that they're secure, that they're high quality, that we're producing them at scale, but that we're still maintaining the authenticity and the validity that ETS is known for. So those are some ways. Look, things are changing so quickly right now. Deborah just mentioned Bill Gates's latest. I mean, we're seeing every day, every week now, and just this incredible, Moore's law-like scaling happening of how this is applying to education. So we're trying to stay ahead of it, both the friendly side of it and the foe side of it, the good and the bad. But we're all in. I mean, we have hundreds of folks that are literally waking up thinking about how do we apply AI, but also how do we anticipate misuses of AI and how do we handle some of those? We have an ethics policy that we adhere to that we think really has the capability to be standards of how AI is applied in K-12, higher ed, and workforce education. And so those are things that we think as, as thought leaders and as standard setters that we want to continue to reinforce.
Just a quick question on keying off the Bill Gates letter that came out today or yesterday. One of the things he says, which I completely agree with, starts off with, is that the edtech revolution that occurred to date has really fallen flat, right? That he has spent, the Gates Foundation has spent tens of millions, of hundreds of millions, really, of dollars, and I think have been frustrated that despite that, we have not seen any kind of movement, and certainly in the U.S., and I think perhaps true elsewhere too, but certainly in the U.S., I've not seen any academic progression, and no narrowing of the achievement gap. What he infers, and I don't think that's necessarily a problem, that we have all bad ed tech products. I think there's all kinds of fidelity of implementation and all kinds of other issues that we all know have us make things fail within school systems, whether that's K-12, higher ed, or the workforce for that matter. But he infers that with the advances happening in generative AI and AI period, that we may finally be able to get around that, and perhaps that's the concept of something that Michael's been talking about for a long time: embedded assessment and invisible learning and invisible assessment. Do you have a view of that and that kind of concept and a role ETS will play in that kind of a future world?
Yeah, no, thanks. A couple of thoughts. I think first, I agree wholeheartedly that the edtech revolution that happened pre-pandemic and that post-pandemic is having mixed success on outcomes. What we saw as positive is new and creative uses of technology to scale, to try new things, to engage learners differently. There's a lot of positives that have happened in terms of innovation on the edtech side, but the learning outcomes, which is really at the end of the day what this is all about, have been really all over the place in K-12 and higher ed. And so I think the first principle I would start with is actually, what are those outcomes? And this is not just a business question or an academic question, it's actually a values question.
Yeah.
What are we solving for? Are we really trying to get more students to graduate high school? Are we trying to get some specific skills in college? Are we trying to be delivering workplace education for underemployed, unemployed in a different way? What are we really targeting? And part of the challenge is that we're grappling as a society, as a globe, with the fact that technology, and particularly AI and generative AI, is now moving at such a fast pace that what does it mean to be human? And what's the role of the human in a world in which artificial intelligence is taking over so many of the activities, work, school activities? So there's fundamental questions of who we are as a species that are on the horizon. So I'll save that for a later podcast. I mean, for this conversation, I think the fundamental, from my point of view, is that if we believe that we really want to have certain types of new paradigms come into place that can help us reimagine the use of, and really the impact of edtech, I'd like to offer something that I think could maybe help with this. I think maybe one thing that we missed, Deborah, in our earlier application of edtech was a lot of us, myself included, we're really stuck in an earlier paradigm. So since the Industrial Revolution, we have kind of taken as assumption that that K-12 and higher ed ought to be still based primarily on seat time. And so we've assumed that was there, and that yes, we're investing in edtech players, yes, we're trying technology, but that there was some fundamental understanding that traditional ways of delivering learning was there to stay, and that we were trying to solve for things. So as I look at some of the really bold initiatives that the Gates Foundation made, right? Small class sizes and investments in different edtech initiatives. I mean, really innovative stuff. And I really credit the Gates Foundation for trying new things, right? I mean, And even if some of them didn't work out, I mean, it's like venture investing. Some of these don't work out, but we're making bets to try to push the future forward. And so I think that what I'm now of the view is that we actually have to move to a different paradigm. And I'd like to propose that that paradigm is no longer based on seat time, no longer based on any kind of traditional measure of progress. All of K-12 and all of higher ed is ultimately still based on the Carnegie unit, right? That a certain number of contact hours means learning. We've, for 100 years plus, just assumed that time in front of some learning actually means that you're learning, which is not true. We all know this now. And so the future, I think, has to really be based on skill mastery, skill proficiency, that we change the currency of the foundation of education from seat time in K-12 and higher ed to really more about skill acquisition. And if we believe that, then we want to measure that in fundamentally different ways. We want to go to really micro assessments, the idea of testless assessments, invisible assessments. We're actually working on a lot of that right now. We have pilots going on in this right now because we're trying to figure out how do we assess a progression of skills. Because if you take the through line from K-12 to higher ed to workforce, and if ultimately as economies evolve and new jobs get created, what's a job but a bundle of skills? So if we can start to measure progress on certain skills in K-12 and certain skills in higher ed and certain skills in the work world, we can actually start to invest philanthropically or through venture and capital in skill acquisition as the big focus area. So I think, I agree with his assessment that it's been a real mixed bag, but I'm hopeful that I think that coming out of the pandemic with all the innovation, we're starting to see, those philanthropic and those entrepreneurs that actually were really focusing on driving learning outcomes, meaning skill progression, are the ones that are really the models for what we want to invest in more of.
Well, and we 100% agree with your outcomes focus. One of the things it's on the ETS website is that the quote from you is about the aspiration of giving everybody basically the opportunity to unleash their potential, which is what our kind of course has been for a bit. So totally aligned. It's so interesting to me because when you look at generative AI, you're only as good as the data set you have, right? And you guys have the best data set in terms of how people have learned and what they know and all these type of things, and then folks done it for a long time. That's so exciting to be able to apply that into this brave new world that we're going. Talk about, in addition to the core products that people know and love you for, talk about some of these new initiatives. You just brought on our good friend Paul Golish. Talk about some of the things you're trying to do with that and how that is part of your future. Great.
Do you have a couple hours? Because I'd really love to get into this. No, I'll be brief. I'm really excited about the new products and new services we're working on, because this is really the fundamental transformation. And you mentioned data, so I wanted to share something important, which is that ETS, which has historically been known as a testing company, is what we're now shifting to a very different company. So what's the new vision of ETS? To become the #1 education data company in the world. That's our mission, is to really become all about developing high quality data sets and the insights that come from those data sets for K-12, higher ed, and workforce everywhere. And so to do that, we need new products and services. And to me, that means we'll be building, but then we'll be also investing in those capabilities to build that. So let me give the example. You mentioned Paul Golish. We're really excited to have Paul on our team. He's leading up an important initiative for us in the K-12 space. One example of what he's doing, he's taking our Praxis test, which has been around for decades. And Praxis is the standard assessment for prospective teachers to get certified to become a teacher. In most of the United States, you need to take Praxis to teach in a classroom in K-12. And what we decided is that Praxis is really just a test. It's just a moment when you're signaling your competencies in a certain pedagogical suite of knowledge or for particular subject areas as a prospective teacher. But what if we actually change this? And what if we actually says, instead of Praxis being a test, what if Praxis were to become a community? a community of individuals that are interested in the field of education. And this now means that we can build a whole range of interactions and learning experiences for prospective teachers who can prepare to take the test, but then also for post-praxis for that critical first 2 years. How do we help ensure the support through community for prospective teachers throughout the United States and around the world? Because we're about to take Praxis Global. This coming quarter is going to be the first time we'll be taking Praxis Global at scale. How do we actually start to build communities of first and second year teachers? And the data that we get through the interactions we see of prospective teachers pre-praxis and first and second year teachers post-praxis actually will help us understand where we as society falling short, because we've got a massive teacher shortage we can solve. We've got a massive opportunity to retain teachers that we're currently losing. If we can just get a handle on where are we falling short on their skills, where are we falling short on their mental health support, because teachers also have mental health needs, and where are we falling short on subject gaps and pedagogical gaps. So that's our vision, to go away from being a test to really becoming a platform that has multiple opportunities for collecting data that can help better support and unleash some of this human capital that we're talking about.
And I'm going to let Deborah ask the last question, but just to comment on what you just said, because I think that you made so many important points. One is the point about outcomes. The second is about communities, because I do believe the future of learning is about creating engaged learning communities. But this point about data, and I say that, the old golden rule was he who had the gold makes the rules. Well, the new one is who has the data makes the rules. And having that data, I think, is really going to determine the future for kind of the world. But Deborah, you got the last question.
Well, I mean, it's covered a lot, but I do want to give a little bit of a tip of the hat to our upcoming conference in San Diego in a couple of weeks. I suspect that we have you on the docket with Tim Knowles for a Brave Stage conversation, and I suspect that you've just given us a little bit of a preview about what the exciting sort of venture that you and Tim at who leads Carnegie are embarking on as it relates to seat time and other things. Maybe just a little comment there, and then I think one area when I was on the board that the organization was looking to expand on really was around the workforce and kind of creating, and you've spoken to this continuum. So just would love maybe a final comment too, Amit, on how you all see ETS being able to really extend brand into workforce and become a powerhouse, because we know that there's been sort of a white space that's not been filled around skill data. Gets talked about a lot, but I don't think there's really been a silver bullet created there. And so just maybe linking, or I don't know if you can link those two, but comment on those two things would be great.
No, those are two great questions. Well, first, thank you very much to you and to Michael for inviting both me and the president of Carnegie Foundation, Tim Knowles, to the upcoming ASU+GSV, where I'm excited to be at the event. This will be my, I think, 9th of 10. I just missed one, Deborah, sorry about that. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to share this. So ETS and the Carnegie Foundation have just signed a very strategic partnership between our two organizations that we believe is historic. We're basically going after the Carnegie unit. The Carnegie unit, founded in 1906, was built in a philosophy of standardization of education across K-12 and higher ed. And the whole philosophy had a good intent of trying to provide consistency in education by requiring a certain number of contact hours to be converted into an understanding of unit progress, of learning progress. So for a high school student, a certain number of hours in a classroom. In the university context, of course, the Carnegie unit got converted to college credits. So we today in the United States have 120 credits that an individual is required to have in order to get a bachelor's degree. So this had a purpose 100 years ago. The challenge that Tim and I, and on behalf of ETS and the Carnegie Foundation, are bringing forward is that that's no longer the right metric. We shouldn't be measuring learning progress by just the amount of hours of contact in a classroom. So we're shifting from a focus on time as the measure of progress to a skill as the measure of progress. So we're developing a whole methodology that's focused on affective, behavioral, and cognitive skills. And the punchline here is that we're basically in the process of developing a whole new way for high school and college to be thought of. And it's really about skill progression. So really excited about the chance to formally announce this at the conference here at the end of April. Really excited about that opportunity. On the second question on workforce development, the opportunity is enormous, Deborah. The opportunity is just enormous. You know, we all know with lifelong learning that the paradigm is shifting, that so much of we as society in a $7 trillion global education economy, so much of the resources are still focused on K-12 and higher ed. And as we all know, with the life expectancies increasing, with the expectation to work later in life, that we need to be thinking differently about how do we help adults upskill, reskill for work, but also for exploration and curiosity. And so our view is that we as ETS need to play a critical role in the future of workforce development, in the future of adults learning. How are we going to do that? We're going to build on several areas of foundation. The first is that we already have a product line called TOEIC. And TOEIC is currently offered in many countries. It is the standard in 5 or 6 big countries throughout the world. Japan, Korea, Taiwan has it, France, and many others, where the government has endorsed TOEIC to be the standard way to signal your level of English language proficiency. And so this is for adults to demonstrate that. So we already have a foothold in assessing skills in the work world that's tied to our heritage in TOEFL and in English assessments. So we're going to build on that. We're planning on offering TOEIC capabilities to other countries as a way to expand across the world. We're also looking at other kinds of skills that we want to assess around. And in a nutshell, our whole view of workforce development is based on horizontal skills and vertical skills. So horizontally, over the next 10 years, much more digital literacy, much more 21st century skills tied to communication and collaboration, much more focus on being able to work in a global context. So these are horizontal skills that we need to have offerings around and have assessments that really drive those. And then the second are vertical skills, as finance, as the energy sector, as healthcare, as all of these key verticals or industries evolve. The jobs that are vertical specific are evolving. And so we're talking to dozens and dozens of companies, Deborah, to better understand what are the kinds of skills that they need and how can they assess for those skills, especially in the hiring process and also in the reskilling process. So that's how we're looking at the workforce development evolution, both horizontally and vertically. And we believe ETS can play a huge role. We have the R&D capabilities, the heritage with TOEIC, the work with governments throughout the world. And so now we're putting a big bet on that. We've just hired a new leader for that, Rohit Sharma. We've got a whole team that's focused on really building new products and services specifically designed for workforce development.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We've so appreciated you joining us today. We will, and we look forward to seeing you here shortly live in San Diego, and really appreciate all the insights. It was fantastic.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you so much. It was awesome.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to see you both, and thanks for having me.
Bye, Amit.